Xiao had always been one of the colony's most dedicated agents. Her fierce loyalty and deep-rooted respect for the colony's traditions made her an invaluable ally. Commander Love, the leader of her colony, had often trusted her with critical missions, but none so delicate as this one. Today, she was summoned to the command center for an assignment that would require all her charm, cunning, and poise. Xiao, Commander Love greeted her with an approving nod, his gaze unwavering. "There's no one else I trust with this mission. Your elegance, your beauty, they're your greatest assets. And they're precisely what we need to gain the upper hand." Xiao listened intently, her hands clasped behind her back as the commander explained her task. The mission was straightforward in its complexity. She was to infiltrate the world of the rival colony and use her allure to charm General Walks, the formidable leader on the opposing side. A man notoriously cold and unyielding, Walks was rumored to keep his distance from others, letting very few get close enough to earn his trust. Xiao felt a thrill of apprehension at the challenge. Walks had a reputation for being calculating and egotistical, but if she could penetrate his defenses, she could retrieve information that would tip the scales in favor of her colony. She accepted her commander's orders with a respectful nod. To go against his command was unheard of, for Xiao valued the duty and traditions of her people above all else. There was no question of refusal. "You'll need to dress the part," Love continued. He gestured toward an assistant, who brought out an ensemble that took Xia's breath away. It was crafted from shimmering fabrics that hugged her frame elegantly and glistened with a subtle, almost hypnotic sheen. As she adorned herself in the attire, she could already imagine the effect it would have on Walks. Everything had been chosen with meticulous care, from her cascading silver earrings to the intricate necklace that lay against her collarbone, enhancing her features in the most flattering way. However, a last-minute oversight caught Love's attention: the shoes. "Of course, you'll need heels to complete the look," he remarked with a faint frown, clearly frustrated by the small but significant detail. "Head to the colony Sho Boutique. They'll have something perfect for you there." Xiao made her way to the exclusive shop, an opulent establishment known only to the colony's elite. The Sho Boutique was surrounded by elegant crystal walls and filled with luxurious displays of footwear crafted to perfection. The attendants were handpicked for their refined tastes and discretion. Xiao approached one of them and described her attire, emphasizing the need for a pair of high heels that would complement her outfit for the mission. After a moment's thought, the attendant brought out a breathtaking pair of heels, their delicate design matching the aura of mystery Xiao aimed to project. Yet, as she slipped her foot into the shoe, she quickly realized it was too tight. The attendant apologized, returning moments later with a slightly larger pair. Xiao tried them on again, but the heels were still an uncomfortable fit. Growing impatient, but determined to proceed with her mission, Xiao waited as the attendant went to search once more. Minutes passed, and an eerie silence settled in the shop. Xiao, alone in the opulent space, began to feel an inexplicable sense of unease. Just as she was about to stand, she heard the faint sound of footsteps echoing through the boutique. Slowly, a figure stepped into view from the shadows, his presence exuding authority and power. Xia's breath caught in her throat as she recognized him immediately: General Walks himself. The stories of his arrogance and his refusal to mingle with anyone outside his inner circle had led her to believe she would need days, maybe weeks, to earn even a passing glance from him. Yet here he stood, his gaze fixed on her. "Were you looking for me, lovely Xiao?" His voice was smooth and confident, each word laced with intrigue. Xiao blinked, barely able to process what was happening. "Is this really you?" She tried to keep her voice steady. "Are you Walks?" Walks's lips curled into a faint, knowing smile. "Yes," he replied, holding up a pair of heels that looked like they had been crafted just for her. He moved closer and knelt at her feet, gently lifting her foot to slide the shoe onto it. The heels fit perfectly, as if they had been made for her alone. Just then, he glanced at the attendants around the room and, with a single gesture, ordered them to leave. Obeying instantly, they exited, and soon the shop was completely empty except for the two of them. The dim lights cast a shadowy, intimate glow across the room, intensifying the tension between them. Wax sat beside her, and his gaze was steady, filled with a blend of amusement and intensity that left Xiao feeling vulnerable and exposed. "I know why you came here," he began, his voice a low murmur. "You're here under Commander Love's orders, trying to win me over, hoping to pry secrets from me. But here's where you went wrong. Xiao, when you leave, you'll be following my orders, not his." Sea's heart pounded, and she fought to keep her composure as his words sank in. How could he possibly know? The mission was meant to be a closely guarded secret. But she reminded herself of her training, steadying her breath as she met his gaze, refusing to show weakness. She had to regain control, turn his accusations to her advantage. "I'm simply here to shop," she replied, feigning innocence, her tone light but tinged with defiance. "And besides, what would make you think I could be swayed so easily?" Wax's lips twisted into a smirk, his eyes gleaming with amusement. He leaned closer, his face mere inches from hers, and whispered, "Because I know more about you than you realize. I know your loyalty to Love, your devotion to your people. I know about your family, the sacrifices you've made to reach this rank. And yet, here you are, alone, vulnerable, with no one watching." He let his words linger, their weight pressing down on her. For the first time, Xiao felt a pang of doubt creeping into her mind. His knowledge of her personal life, her past, it was unsettling. Was he bluffing, trying to throw her off balance, or did he truly know her so well? Sea's mind raced as she tried to grasp what his game was, but she couldn't shake the growing allure of his gaze, the power in his presence. She couldn't afford to show fear. With a practiced smile, she shifted in her seat, crossing her legs and folding her hands in her lap, maintaining her composed exterior. "What is it you want, Wax?" she asked, her voice steady yet laced with intrigue. "If you're so sure of my intentions, then tell me, why are you entertaining them?" Wax laughed softly, leaning back and observing her with piercing intensity. "It's not your intentions I'm interested in, Xiao. It's your loyalty and how easily it can shift." He paused, allowing his words to hang between them, watching as Sea's expression flickered, her walls beginning to waver. She could sense his power, his allure pulling her in like a gravitational force she couldn't resist. And yet, she clung to the mission, her training. She couldn't betray Love, her colony, her people. But with Wax's presence so near, her convictions seemed to blur. "You see," he continued, his voice softer, as if lulling her into a trance, "you've been trained to follow orders, to serve without question. But tell me, Xiao, have you ever stopped to wonder what you truly want? Or is it that you simply follow the path others have set for you, never pausing to find your own desires, your own ambitions?" His words cut deeper than she anticipated, sparking something within her that she'd never allowed herself to consider. What did she truly want? Her loyalty to her colony was ingrained in her very being, yet here was Wax, unearthing her buried doubts with an ease that unsettled her. Still, Xiao was determined not to show her vulnerability. She straightened, her voice unwavering as she replied, "My loyalty isn't for sale, Wax. You can try to play your mind games, but I won't waver from my duty. And as for you, perhaps you're just afraid that someone like me could uncover your weaknesses." Wax's eyes narrowed slightly, though his expression remained composed. "Weaknesses?" he echoed, a low chuckle rumbling in his chest. "Do you truly think you could find a weakness in me?" Without waiting for her response, he reached out, his fingers lightly brushing a strand of her hair back, an intimate gesture that sent an electric current through her. Xiao froze, her heart racing as his hand lingered, his touch firm yet gentle. "Everyone has weaknesses," he murmured, his gaze fixed on her, unwavering. "Even the strongest warrior, even the most loyal agent." His hand moved to cup her chin, lifting her face so she couldn't look away. "It's simply a matter of finding them, of exposing them and wielding them to your advantage." She swallowed hard, her heart pounding as his words sank in. He was speaking of her, she realized, and in that moment, she felt herself unraveling, her defenses slipping with every word he spoke, every look he gave. The lines between mission and desire, duty and attraction blurred, fading into the haze of the dimly lit room. Imagine, Xiao, he continued, his voice a seductive whisper, what you could accomplish by my side. The power, the influence, you wouldn't be just another agent in love's eyes. You'd be someone of true importance, someone who could shape the future of our worlds. For a moment, Sea's mind spun with the possibilities, her loyalty wavering in the face of his promise. She imagined herself not just as a pawn in someone else's plan, but as a figure of significance, wielding power she'd never dreamed of. And Wax's gaze held her captive, an unspoken promise that he could give her everything she yearned for, if only she would let go. But she couldn't forget love, her people, the cause she had fought for her entire life. She took a shuddering breath, her resolve hardening as she pulled back slightly, breaking the spell he was weaving around her. You can try to manipulate me, Wax, but I know who I am, she said, her voice steady once more, her eyes blazing with defiance, and I won't betray my people. Wax watched her, a flicker of admiration in his gaze, though his expression remained unreadable. He leaned back, folding his hands in his lap as he regarded her with a faint smile. Very well, Xiao, I can see you're not easily swayed. But let's see how long that resolve lasts. He rose from his seat, extending a hand toward her. Xiao hesitated, but after a moment, she placed her hand in his, allowing him to help her to her feet. His grip was firm, grounding, yet there was an undeniable chemistry between them, a tension that lingered even as he released her hand. I'll give you a choice, he said, his voice low, almost daring her. Return to love and your duties, go back to being the loyal soldier, or stay here with me and let me show you a world beyond duty, beyond loyalty. For a long, agonizing moment, Sea's heart wavered, torn between the life she'd always known and the intoxicating allure of Wax's world. The offer dangled before her, tempting her with visions of freedom, power, and a life beyond the boundaries of her loyalty. And for the first time, she found herself questioning her purpose, wondering if perhaps, for once, she should take a step away from the path she'd been given. But in the end, she released a slow breath, shaking her head as she met his gaze, her decision firm. Thank you for the offer, General Wax, she said, her voice calm, unyielding. But my loyalty remains with my people. Wax inclined his head slightly, his expression unreadable, though there was a glimmer of something in his eyes, respect, perhaps, or a hint of regret. Then go, Xiao, he murmured, his voice soft. Return to your world, but remember, I'll be waiting. And should you ever seek something more, you know where to find me. As she turned and left the room, her heart heavy yet resolute, Xiao knew she had passed a test, a trial of loyalty that had pushed her to the edge. And though she had walked away from Wax's offer, the echo of his words lingered, haunting her with the promise of something she could never have. But her decision was made, and as she stepped into the light outside, she knew that her loyalty, her duty, would forever define her.